Good evening. I'm Andrew Garbarino. I'm the State Assemblyman in the 7th District. I know I went over some issues before, but there's a new guest come tonight. My district runs from Brightwaters to East Patchogue. I've been representing for the last, because I'm running for my second re-election, so I've been there for 4 years already. Blows my mind. Goes so quickly. Just a couple issues that I'd like to talk about tonight that's affected Bohemia, the property owners up here. I spoke about it before. One of the big issues was back in 2009, to save some money, the state instituted the gap elimination adjustment, took a lot of money away from school districts, a lot of state aid, and what happened then is the schools had to make it up other ways. Some of them cut, some of them raised taxes on the homeowners. This past year in the budget, something we were very proud of, something I was fighting for the last 4 years, was the full elimination of the GEA, and we achieved that. So I think this year we had a record amount of money coming to Connecticut School District of over $53 million in state aid alone. Next year we're hoping to, if I go back, if you guys send me back there, I'm hoping to increase that amount, because the more we send back from upstate, the less it's going to...
on the revenue side.
Yep, the less that comes out of your pocket. I don't think Connecticut's come out with its numbers yet, but other school districts have actually announced that they are cutting taxes because they've gotten enough money from the state. So as long as we can continue doing that, that's something, you know, we'd love to, yeah.
For $100 it lowers that.
Well, yeah, but because what happens is the school district will, the more money they get from us, their levy is less, which means, so they might cut their levy by 6%, but that for you guys it's different based on the valuation. So so that's something we were very proud of this year. Another thing that's really affecting Long Island, I just spoke about it before, is the heroin epidemic. It's a big problem all over Long Island. I said it before that, you know, when Rich DeAndre from Rainer DeAndre Funeral Home says that there's 5% of his funerals are from overdoses and suicides, you know, that's a major problem. So about 2 years ago, we did the Assembly Republicans went around the state. They had hearings. We had people come and testify. We had law enforcement testify. We had the district attorneys. We had doctors, hospitals. We had parents and relatives of heroin addicts come and testify, and we came up with a plan. And this year we passed about 11 or 12 bills that address some of those issues. One of them, in the budget, we increased funding for both treatment and education for people, you know, teaching people how to use Narcan if somebody does overdose. Another one was money to help create more beds for people that have addiction problems, because that's one thing we heard from everybody. There's not enough beds. You know, if somebody wants to go into rehab, or you know, they can't. There's no facilities out there. So that hopefully with the $55 million this year, and we want to increase that next year because it's definitely not enough, but it's a start to increase more beds. Another thing we did was we made the mandatory watch that a hospital can keep a patient in. If a parent can say, we want this, he's under 18, we want them to be, right now it was only 48 hours. We just increased that to 72 hours, so the hospital can keep them in the hospital for 72 hours, you know, so they can't go back out and once they overdose and overdose again. Another big thing was, you know, this problem, a lot of it starts with, you know, pills, pain pills. We lowered the threshold. You can no longer get a 30-day supply for acute pain of any oxycodone or anything like that. The maximum you can get now for acute pain is 7 days. You know, try to get the pills out of the system, because a lot of people, they'll take 2 days worth and they'll leave them in their medicine cabinets.
Sell them.
Yeah, well, they'll sell them, or somebody will come and take them. Somebody will come to the house and take them. So we're trying to fix it better. We also are requiring insurance companies to do more. You know, there are a lot of things the insurance companies weren't covering. Narcan, they weren't covering certain treatments. So one of the bills requires them, all the insurance companies, to cover Narcan. Another one is going to, right now, we put it on the Department of Health and the Department of Financial Services to come up with regulations that are that sets a whole bunch of standards to show what the insurance companies in New York State, if they offer health insurance, what they're going to have to cover, because we're treating it now as a disease, not just an addiction. So we were really proud about that, because it actually, you know, got some some things done. You know, other issues that we want to go back and address next year was we had heard that on the law enforcement side, they didn't have enough, they couldn't, their hands are tied because of the Rockefeller drug laws, you know, based on the amount of the value and how the weight, you can't prosecute certain people. Like, as it's written now, and this is the district attorney in Nassau County, she came and spoke, and she said to us, she says, if you catch somebody with 115 bags of heroin, they could get off through a drug program. They could say it's for self-use, and they can get off through a drug program. Do no jail time, even though you know they're dealing. The judge is mandated to let them, if they say it's for their own use, the judge has to let them go through this drug program. So they just go right back out onto the street. And it's something that, you know, you got to get it's good to help on the addiction end and that, but we also have to get the dealers off the street. That's a major problem that happens there. Another thing, you know, that'll affect this area is this year in the budget, thanks to, actually, this was Phil Boyle's baby, so I can't really take credit for it, but the addressing the Oakdale merge, $30 million was finally, they've been talking about it for years, fix the merge, fix the merge, fix the merge. We finally put in, I think it was $30 million in this year's budget to do a study and the construction, because there are wetlands and parkland involved. So the state requires, if you ever, you know, when you're doing, when you deal with wetlands, and also when you're alienating parkland, there has to be a study done. So that state law requires that. So they have to do the study first, but there's enough money to do both the study and, I believe, the construction. That was the intent of the $30 million that was put in this year's budget. It's probably not going to happen overnight because they have to put out a bid, but we're hoping in the next several years, because it has to happen. You know, but the study, I know several years. Listen, in government time, in New York State politics, something I've learned is you know, I'm not happy about it, but it's the fact that it's actually moving, you know, there's $30 million there. It's set for that purpose. So that's a good thing. You know, the fact that we're not just saying, well, we're putting out a bill to possibly do a study sometime in the future. This is the furthest we've ever been to fixing that. So, and I don't think, and the $30 million that's there now is not just going to sit there. They're going to, you know, as long as Phil Boyle's in the Senate, I'm in the Assembly, we're going to keep making sure that money gets spent the right way.
What are they projecting to do to improve the traffic?
Yeah, they really have to wait till the study, but it was adding, I believe, 2 more lanes and moving.
The service roads.
The service roads, yeah. Well, no, I believe adding a lane. Yes, to the south service road. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
South
Yes,
service
move up.
road and
Yeah.
the north service road.
Yeah.
They
So
need
just
2
adding a
service-
lane in each direction.
2 lanes in each.
That was, I
direction.
mean, like I said, I
One
can't
lane.
speak to what the specifics
Oh, okay.
are going to be, but that was the intent between, I'm not an engineer, Phil Boyle's not an engineer. We know we just want the problem fixed. So we have to wait for them to do the studies to say, this is how you fix it. I think you just, in my opinion, need more lanes. But I feel like if you have more lanes, the cars could just travel better. But I mean, I don't know what the engineers are going to say. They'll know better than me. But I'm just happy we got the money. That's what matters.
Next.
But you know, there's just a lot of things that we'd like to continue to do up in Albany, and I think you know, I'd really just be happy to take questions. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and you know, a lot of you know me, and you know, anything specific, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Yes.
Okay, one of the issues, we need a strong legislator to do something with this Taylor law. We have to redo the state constitution to change the Taylor law, specifically the Triborough Amendment. It's killing us. It's killing us. And we have to spend, nobody in the world is guaranteed a return on their investment. But the teachers are guaranteed 7.5%, down from 8%. So when the stock market went down, we had to guarantee them a return on their investment. The president doesn't get a return on a guaranteed return. The governor of the state of New York doesn't get, but the teachers get it, and that's wrong. We got to change that. We got to redo the state constitution to rescind that law.
What?
Now, 3-4 years ago,
Wait, I'm going to stop you because is that a question or are you asking him to?
I'm asking him
Well, to
to propose legislation to change that law.
There is legislation proposed, but one of the big things, a lot of people are upset about that. You know, you have a feeling either way, and there's got to be Next year, there's going to be, on the ballot, there's going to be a vote for a constitutional convention. Because to change any of these, a lot of these things, you have to amend the Constitution. And doing that in New York State is, it's difficult. You know, it took us forever. We just passed the first bill to do the pension forfeitures for corrupt politicians. They have to pass that again next year, that has to go on the ballot. That's how you amend the Constitution. There's either that way, you have to pass a bill within 2 separate legislatures, and then that it's got to be the same bill, and then after that's done twice, it then goes on the ballot for approval.
You mean you vote on it?
The public
The
public votes on it after it's passed the legislature twice.
Yeah, but the teachers union sends $21 million every year to Albany.
So what?
Come on.
But what I'm saying is there's another way. The other way to change every 10 years, I believe every 20 years there's an option that goes on the ballot for a constitutional convention in New York State. Next year that'll be on the ballot. These are big issues that are coming up, and you can at that constitutional convention you can do anything. So a lot of people who are against it, who want changes to the Taylor law, are pushing for that next year because they've realized how difficult it is to get those changes enacted through the legislature. There are bills up there to amend the Taylor law and other items. You know, Mike Fitzpatrick has one.
Right.
He has one that covers about 8 different things. It's a big bill.
What is your position on it?
I don't like his bill, but it has more to do with another part of his legislation.
Which
Not
is?
that one. It has to do with more about police and you know, the funding with that. So, you know, they're saying how, you know, you don't want to know how sausage is made. You don't want to know how a bill is passed in Albany, how a bill becomes law. It's really what they start out with and what you get at the end. Sometimes it's depressing how you talk about how great this is. Oh, we're going to do this wonderful thing, and then by the time it passes, it's so watered down.
If it was coming up on the next vote, how would you vote?
On his
Would you
bill?
go with the teachers union?
On his bill?
On a bill to redo the Taylor law and the Triborough amendment?
Saying something that blank, I can't say yes or no because I don't know what exactly it'd be doing. It's so specific, the Taylor law and the Triborough amendment, any changes, I can't say, you know, you could change one little thing or you could just throw the whole thing out. So I really have to know. I can't, say yes or no.
You should look up, you should become aware of that.
No, we are, but there are any proposed changes, you want to know what they are before you say if you're going to vote for them or
Of
not.
course.
Well, what he's saying is, he wants to know what your proposal would be. Would you tie it to the stock market? Would your proposal be that if, pensions would follow the stock market, so if it crashes, then the teachers?
Well, that
The public should
doesn't,
not guarantee a 7.5% return or any return.
So to change it from a defined benefit plan
And that.
to a contribution.
There's one other
Right.
thing you gotta change when you start talking about that. It's
Wait,
very
before we get on to you, but, so if pros that
I agree. The public should not be guaranteeing anything, and as it is how it is. I do agree with that.
Please,
You should not be.
You know, a couple of years ago, we had the Connect Watt School District had to write checks for $5 million to the ERS and the TRS. That's ripped off the taxpayers, stole from the kids.
Because it was. Yeah.
It's criminal. That's criminal what happened. It
No,
shouldn't be.
There's a
$5
couple.
million.
I was endorsed by the teachers union this year, but I was not. I'll tell you right now, they come to me. They come to me on certain issues because I agree with them on certain issues. But I've also told them before, I don't agree with you on this. Something that another big cost that your school board could tell you about is something that if I decide not to have health insurance through the state, they'll give me $1,000
After you
not to
retire.
take it. No, now if say I get married and my wife has health insurance through her company, I say, you know what,
You're
I
talking
don't.
about school employees.
I'm just giving you an example. Hold on one second. All right. If I don't want health insurance through the state will say, okay, do you have a family plan or a single? Say right now it's say a family. So they'll say, okay, we'll give you $3,000 instead of having to pay $15,000 for your or $20,000 for your health insurance. It's set. That's every, if everybody in the state that works in, it's a separate part of the state government, but that's how the state has it. One thing that actually was brought to my attention by the Bayport superintendent and the president over there is the way it works in the teachers, with school employees, they have to negotiate. So what happens here is, say, one teacher's in Bayport, one teacher's in West Iceland. Oh, you don't need both health insurance policies.
Because
So-
you're married.
So, yeah, because you're married.
Or whatever.
So what happens then is they say, all right, one person, how it's explained to me that works at Bayport said, they said, they'll go and say, all right, I want $5,000. And then Bayport say, fine, we'll give you $5,000. And then the husband will go back to West Iceland and say, they offered me $5, I
How
want
much do you
$7.
want the other way?
So they're bidding. I have it on my phone. I don't want to look it up right now, but
So it should be a state number, not a
it
local
should be a set number.
number. Yeah, please do that.
That's something.
Legislate that.
It's something we're pushing. I talked about it in the Newsday endorsement screening. They're actually going to do an article about it. Bayport Blue Point's losing $500,000 a year in these buyouts, in these health insurance buyouts. I think I have the number for Connecticut. It's staggering.
These are for current employees.
Like to address because when you play this, it's costing a lot of money. Like I said, I have the numbers just in my district. I think Connecticut, it might be over $1 million
That's a
what
lot
they're
of money.
spending
It's a lot of
on
money.
these.
That's-
It's unconstitutional. You can't. They've already limited it how much money like I can raise from a certain. I can raise the same amount from a. Dom Coffee gave me, I think it's $4,100 or $4,400. I've never gotten it that much, so I don't know. I think it's around there.
Right.
Okay.
Or it's the same as how much a union can give you. It's capped on how much somebody can give you. Yes, but you can't.
And a lot of it has to
But
be
you-
personal funds, it
Yeah.
can't be LLCs or PACs or anything like that.
Yeah, you're limited. Corporations are limited by 5,000. There are limits on how much
Past 2
can
years,
be
they've really
can be
really out of
can be given. It's just. There's the lobbying efforts that are going on up in Albany. It's not just about. The money. I'm telling you right now, it's not. People come and meet us who don't meet with me all the time. I'm on the health committee. I have doctors and nurses and everybody coming. I have, I have all different groups come and meet with me. Insurance companies, I don't get money from any of them, but they come and lobby, and it's just, certain people, you have certain politicians that are, will do based on how much money they got. I will give you that. I've heard people in the state assembly.
Well, we do have some in jail for that.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people in the state assembly.
Still have some that didn't go to jail yet.
No, I agree.
They're still fighting it.
You have people that, I don't vote based on how much money somebody gave me. I don't. I vote on what I think is best. But you definitely do have people that take money and say, well, they gave me $800, but these guys gave me $900, so I think I'll vote with them on this way. There are people up there that do it. But that's the,
That's the nature of the beast.
I don't even want to say that because that makes it sound awful, but people that get into this, get into it, for that. Not everybody up there does it, so, there are a bunch of people up there that vote the way they think they should vote, what they think is right. There is a lot of money spent by unions and stuff up there, but it really isn't, it's about, if the teachers, if all of a sudden I have 20 teachers come up and meet me in my office, you're listening to them, and they're all, those are your constituents, you're listening to them. Same as if I have this past year, Eastern Suffolk BOCES brought up about 6 kids that are in the BOCES programs to help advocate for more money there. I had this one girl came in from Bayshore. She was in a construction class. She was the only girl. She's learning how to build homes. That makes me want to support BOCES. It's not just about the money. It's about people coming up and speaking to you, people coming to your office and talking to you about issues they want to push. It's not about the money. It's not about the money for me. But
What do the teachers want you to do?
well, they want you to,
Don't say
support different, they want you to support them. Like one issue they were pushing this year was they didn't want me to support the education investment tax credit bill. They said, well, we want all the money to go we want all the money to come back there, so we don't want any money, any tax credits for, you know, anybody who gives money to, you know, public schools or private schools. And, you know, there's a big thing they're wanting. As I said, I disagree with you. I think, so I mean, they'll come and they'll advocate 7 or 8 different bills. They say, okay, I understand why you want that, you know, or I don't agree with you on that, you know, and you just have to be, some people will tell them that, some people, you know,
The
won't.
teachers-
More than 0.
Mr. Garbarino, thank you for doing this.
Yes.
It's never easy with the public. You mentioned that you get a teachers union. What teachers union did you get endorsed by?
Nice.
Which is,
The New York State United Teachers.
It's all one.
It's everybody.
The whole state, they're all in one union.
you mentioned in your brochure you're against Common Core. What is the teachers union's position on that?
Well, I'm against certain aspects of the Common Core. Something they wanted, they didn't want the test
didn't wanna-
scores tied
they didn't wanna
to
get
their
evaluated.
ratings.
Gentlemen, sir.
They didn't want they didn't want their
Right, but did
test
they
scores.
take a position on any other aspects of the Common Core except one that personally affected them?
They do have, I mean,
I-
that was their strongest position,
Right,
yes.
right. I know self-interest.
They did, I mean, they took, I mean, they didn't like they wanted more training for the teachers to help implement it. That was another issue they wanted.
So they're not really against it if they want more training to implement.
Well, no, they said they're not against the higher standards, and I'm not against higher standards.
A higher standards
I-
are a
you know,
very
I-
empty statement, though. Higher standards by whose judgment, what metric, by what criteria? I mean, it's a very good thing to say everybody can say, I'm for higher standards, but what does that mean exactly?
Nice talking.
It's
Well-
like a thought-terminating cliche to say that. I'm not saying that you're saying that, but a politician, anybody says that.
Well, you just, you know, if you want your population to be as smart as possible, and if you say, if you push them, maybe they'll, you know.
Right, but there's the definition of what constitutes smart, street smart, education, how do you form, but that's a whole
Well,
big thing.
I imagine it'd be education in schools.
Well, it's a lot of, that's a big question, but I won't go
Yeah.
into that one right now. And now the Senate Majority Leader is John Flanagan.
Yep.
And now he's very pro-Common Core. I was wondering how you and him talk about this subject.
I really want to talk to him about it.
Okay.
He may not
Which-
be here.
I know where his office is.
Yeah, it's possible, it's possible.
Steve Francisco is looking to run against him.
I mean, I'd say, you know, he's got his positions on it, I have mine.
Right, but how does that work inter-party?
Well, I'm in the Assembly, he's in the Senate, I mean,
Yeah.
just because we're, you know, in the same party, doesn't mean we have to have the same positions, you know, so it is what it is. I mean, there's plenty of Republicans that are, you know, like Common Core, there's plenty of Democrats that supported Common Core.
Right.
There's plenty of them that don't like certain issues, parts of it. There's,
Has the Republican Party in New York State taken a position on it as the party
the
official?
official, I don't know if it has an official position.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now, the comptroller is definitely, DiNapoli, especially over the last few years, he's definitely put a lot of pressure on his audits, and you might not, the audits hit the newspaper, but believe me, he's
Well, what happens
he's
to
staying on
the
top of them.
person in the school district who made those errors? Somebody's purposely,
If somebody's, I'm telling you right now, if the
somebody's
comptroller's, if the comptroller's
moving the
office,
money
if
up.
the
Let him
comptroller's
answer.
office is misappropriating funds and moving it, there have been, recently, when these audits come out, they have been forced, the school districts have been forced to, you know, move those funds back to where they are. And listen, I'm telling, you know, I just, the specific with Sable I just gave, it's happening all the
It's
time.
happening all the time.
Yeah, but
But what
it's
about
being
the
addressed.
person who's employed by the school district who's doing that job? What happens to them? Slap on the wrist. They get a big raise next year and it's over.
I mean, I can't force the Attorney General's office or the district attorney to indict anybody, but I do know the comptroller's office is addressing the problem with the money, which hits your pocketbook. I mean, that's the most
I think what
important
you're
part.
upset about is they're inflating their expenses.
Of course.
And
So
they're being-
what can you do to prevent them
From
from
doing that.
inflating the expenses?
And,
to
I mean,
begin with?
and I mean, well, that's the
real issue.
that's the that's the
It's
problem.
obviously, the comptroller comes in after and says,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
well,
too late.
you
No, we
collected
get
$10
the
million
money gets back.
too much, now you have to put it back into the general fund, so then the taxes go down. But the real issue is, let's not collect $10 million too much
Yeah,
in the
of
future.
course.
And they have, and I think now this is the
I mean,
closest.
we all have to do our budgets a certain way.
Dinap-
Why
Wait,
can't
let
they
him
do
answer.
their budget?
Is there anything that
The
the
I mean, I'll tell you,
legislature can do?
well, I mean, their laws already is set, you know, to do this. That's why the governor, that's why the comptroller is doing these reviews. He's doing more of them than he, you know.
Right.
I tell you right now, you know, I'm a Republican. DiNapoli's a Democrat, but his office is unbelievable. They are on top of everything, and it really has just started. He's been doing this for a couple of years now, and I think you're between that and the tax app. They're not allowed. With you looking before the tax app and all this, they could get away with anything. Nobody would know.
Nobody would know.
But I
The
think
combination of the
I think with the
tax cap
tax
and
cap now, which they really had to cut the fat because they couldn't overinflate,
right.
and the comptroller looking over everybody's shoulders for people that are still doing it. And I'm telling you, the thing that in Sable that happened was from like 6 years ago that they caught. I mean, these are they're on top. I mean, I think you're not going to see it as much, hopefully never, at these school districts because people are looking at it.
Right.
I mean, as long as
gonna take
Tom
years.
DiNapoli stays there, and the tax cap stays where
That's nice to hear a Republican endorsing a Democrat.
he's unbelievable. I mean,
Like that.
he does a phenomenal job. Love to see him as governor of Cuomo.
Anybody but Cuomo.
It'd be great. I mean,
MTC,
I mean,
right?
I'll tell you right now, he was in the state assembly. I didn't know him there, but he is, he does when somebody does a good job, you gotta say they're doing a good job. And he's doing a very good job.
All right, so that.
He's saying I'm doing a good job too, by the way. No.
That's nice to see the crossing of the party line, so that, I like that.
Yeah,
Does it look like the tax cap is gonna continue?
yes.
No problem?
There's certain people that are advocating for a flat 2% instead of,
2% with all those adjustments.
well, flat 2%. Right now it's 2% or, the cost of living, yeah, inflation. There's certain people that are advocating for it. And if we lose the state senate, if the Republicans lose the state senate, you'll either see the tax. And I'll tell you this. I'm not. I'm doing it to scare you because it's going to happen. You'll either see the 2% or you'll see it go completely. You'll see the tax. If the Republicans lose the Senate, I could see the tax cap disappearing, or at very little the 2%. And 2%. I mean, even still, nobody's guaranteed a 2% raise. I mean, so again, it's.
I'd like to see it just the way it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you right. I mean, it works. I mean, it shouldn't be on. We got to come up. The state's got to come up with more education funding. We did it this year. We got to come up with more for next year. As long as we
Schools
keep
gotta
doing.
cut their budgets, that's
Yeah.
what they gotta do.
And they did. I mean, and a lot of them, I think, have. And they're. And
Now, the teachers pay more towards their medical insurance. It's about time, they can't get it free forever, too
Okay.
much.
I'm gonna cut
Yes,
it
ma'am.
off because we're
That's a
taking
local issue.
way too much
Local
time.
issue. It should be a state.
So, thank you very much. I appreciate you got grilled,
Absolutely.
unfortunately.
It's all in
you were
the-
the only candidate here.
It's in the contract, so
Good job.
you have to renegotiate the contract. Thank you. Where's that being posted?
YouTube.
Movement primarily seems to be a white middle-class movement. I was wondering, New York State, the country as a whole, is being demographically changed through immigration, and that the middle class and the white population is dwindling. I was wondering how that's going to affect the opt-out movement and other movements that you've observed.
I don't know if it's. I think the opt-out movement is really, I only see it in my district in Long Island, what way we've heard, and I think a lot of it has to deal with more on the frustration and the fact that this was the parents' last, this is the last thing they thought they could do. I don't have kids. I don't know whether or not I'd have them take the test or if I had them opt out. I can't say that. I can't speak to what a parent decided what was best.
But
I'll tell you right now. I think, and I think you're seeing it from what our education person, our person in the research department of the Assembly, Republicans. We have someone who works in research that that deals with the education department, and I believe. Now the Common Core standards and the test have been, they've been in for a couple of years, and you have some of the kids that started with it in kindergarten and first grade. I think they're having less. The younger students, I think, from what our staff said, is having less opt-out than the older classes, the people that have been. So I think, whether or not, I don't know about whether it's racial or whatnot, but
It's not racial.
but
I
I
don't
think
think you're right on that
It's
point.
not racial.
I think in a couple of years, I think when
I think,
When
well,
pe-
in a
when-
couple
when-
of
when-
years, the white population will continue to diminish.
well, I mean, but I think as for the opt-out movement, I think the Common Core standards, learning standards will have been you know, some of these kids that started learning in kindergarten, they'll now be in 5th or 6th grade. I think, you know, they will have grown up with that. So it's you know, it's tough for for these older kids. You know, when they were dropped into 5th grade, you know, when the Common Core started, the standard started, they had to, they were supposed to have known, they were expected, the way it was taught, they didn't go through kindergarten through 4th. They were taught as if they had already learned that, the Common Core materials from kindergarten through 4th. So, you know, it was very difficult. You know, it's like saying, okay, you're writing with your right hand, now halfway through, or now you got to write with your left. I think it was difficult for the older kids, and there was a lot of frustration. You know, we heard from a lot of parents that said when they had to do homework with their kids, and the kids they couldn't sleep because they didn't want to go to school because they didn't get the problem. They felt embarrassed. I mean, you know, I think the opt-out movement started there because of a lot of parents thought that their concerns were not being heard and nobody was addressing them, and so they said, you know what? Our kid's not taking the test.
It also has to do with special education.
Well,
children.
the individual education.
And I'm one of those
piece.
parents,
Yeah.
I did not my children out, I made them take the test because I didn't want them to feel like they could fit and not be good at taking tests and
Yeah.
having
That's
practice.
right. Good for you.
However, I am one of those parents that says, yeah, they were writing with the right hand and now the left, and it's very difficult, they went to too far a level. My question over here, I'm a little confused with your demographics. All children are children, black, white, purple, whatever. So the
That-
demographics of them
I-
going
I-
into
well, that's-
kindergarten, they're all learning at the same level.
First of all, I will say it's a touchy subject. I'm not saying that.
No, but I'm
and-
just saying, I don't understand why you bring the
Because if you look at
demographic
the
into
opt-out
it.
rates, the rates are higher in white, middle-class suburban neighborhoods, whereas in the inner city, blacks, Hispanics, even in like Brentwood, Central Islip, Wyandanch, the opt-out numbers were in the single digits. That is definitely, it's due to culture. It's due to culture, due to relationship education. And it's not even just that, it's also perhaps like Asians, and I have friends, you know, who came from like India and such. Their parents are very strict about, you know, education, schooling, and they would never let their children opt out. If you think some parents would never let their own, they would never let their own. But so it's not just like cultures that have not a quite built-in appreciation for education and learning. It's also cultures that have it like excessively. But that's a very big question. I'm just saying that because the white population is kind of dwindling, because it's just, you know, not reproducing as quickly in immigration, that the opt-out movement is basically doomed. Like, Common Core is here to stay, realistically.
That's a bigger issue when people can't afford to have born children, and those
Well,
people
that's also
in those
true.
other demographics are struggling to have both parents working, where some of the
Right.
white middle class aren't. Parents are home, they're more involved in the school and see what's going on.
There's some of that too, yeah.
So I think
But
it's
I'm
more
part of
that way.
the generation that will never be able to afford, some of my generation will never be able to afford their own house, unlike the, you know, but I don't want to get off, I want to address Mr. Garbarino.
No, I agree, I
But
was just trying to understand the whole demographics.
It's a
and
big
how that
topic,
got
there's a
pulled
lot
in.
of.
It's funny. Actually, you said you had your kids take that. My dad said, you know, I remember he was, you know, we all went public school, actually Catholic school, through grade school and public school. My dad's, when he heard about the opt-out movement, he gets very upset about it. He doesn't have the kids in high school anymore, and he says, I don't, you know, necessarily agree with him. He says you can't have your kids opt out of life. You know, you guys do them. But that's not. But the problem is he didn't have the kids going through it and seeing everybody struggling. So it's, you know.
And I see that.
I hadn't, you know, I heard it. I hadn't seen it personally, but
I struggled as a parent trying to help them with their.
I have an 11th grader, and they're the ones that were dropped into it.
Mm-hmm.
They're the
Middle
first
schoolers,
generation,
Yep.
the
middle
first
schoolers,
generation
yeah.
that got dropped
Yeah.
into it without having the base. Now, I have to say that thankfully my daughter's very bright, and had I let her take the test, she would have had no problem with it. She does very well on tests. It's not an issue for her. I didn't let her take the test because of the special education kids, because of the way they rolled it out, and really that was my only voice, was opting out to fight for all children, not just for my smarty pants daughter who could have taken the test and done fine with it. Do you know what I
I
mean?
see both sides
So,
of it.
right, so that's why I did it. It's not about, for me, it wasn't about the testing. I went on the EngageNewYork.com site and I spent hours looking at the 3rd grade stuff. And it was horrible. The modules were horrible.
I agree.
So-
I think the whole thing is horrible.
Right,
I think
but
it's,
that's what it goes to that demographics questions. I think that there was a lot of,
I think
parents-
that's also it's not about opting out of life.
no,
You know,
No, I
come-
mean, I said,
you know,
you know, like-
listen, I come from parents that came over here literally on a boat and didn't know English. So they learned the hard knocks, and they taught me the hard knocks, and they said there is no easy way out of life.
Correct.
But the way they rolled out Common Core, the very basis of Common Core, I have a kindergartner and a second grader and now a sixth grader. The math they are showing them is the most spastic way of doing math I have ever seen in my life.
Convoluted, it's.
I don't think it
disgusting.
should be whether there is a test or not. I think the only message you're gonna give in getting it up to the legislature is to opt out, to say
Right.
what you're shoving down our throats. Kids should not be taught math the way they're teaching math, that you break the number up of tens, ones, and hundreds, so that when they're in real life, they're not going to be able to figure out, I'm buying something for $1.25 and I'm adding something that's 99 cents. They're gonna sit there and say, I'm gonna take the 9, I'm gonna take the 9 and the 1s, I'm gonna add it to the 5 and the 1s, and then I'm gonna take the 2. It's just,
It's convoluted.
and I don't think labeling the parents that have opted out, that they're sheltering their children,
No, I didn't mean to say that. I hope you didn't
Yeah.
take that from me. I mean, I didn't, I
No,
wasn't
I'm
saying
just
that.
saying, anybody,
Yeah.
you know, like, if we're gonna have this discussion, I think it's a bigger discussion of whether, let's look at Common Core and see if the actual curriculum is
Well, and
gonna
this
work
goes
or not.
back to, again, the whole thing with the teachers, so it isn't fair to the teachers that this is all difficult and they are being assessed that way, but they should be assessed, absolutely.
Now, I don't always agree with the teachers' union, and Jerry will tell you that.
What?
Bob will tell you that, but when it comes to the Common Core, when you put up an example about a worker, and like Mr. Garbarino said, you're not gonna rate the supervisor on work that he didn't do. You're gonna rate the employee on the work that he did, right? So what they're doing now is, and you know how I am with the teachers' union, if I agree, I agree, if I don't, I'm pretty loud and obnoxious about it. But you can't rate my child's teacher on a decision that I made for my child and opted them out to take that test. You can't do that to a teacher, and I don't always agree with the union, but in this instance I do. You can't judge a teacher based on a
Well,
score
right now,
from a
it's all
child.
scrambled eggs. They couldn't possibly evaluate a teacher now with the way it is.
No, it's horrible. No,
Because
you
it's
can't.
horrible.
So there has to be a
It's gotta
better
be
way.
straightened
I
out.
believe that they should be
We
evaluated.
do have,
that way.
we have one more question, but I do want to say one thing about, the one thing the opt-out movement did help with, whether you liked it or not, was over the last 2 years, we've replaced 4 members of the Board of Regents, which is where this all came from.
Okay.
And with educators. You know, a lot of the people, you know, they used to just be put on there, some of them
King
didn't have
lost his
education.
job.
So, I mean, that was one of the
Now
things
he's
that
in
helped push through, and we have 4 people that are, you know, not teachers, but people that were in the education field or have education ideas, now are on the Board of Regents that we didn't have before, so that was
So
a
they're
plus.
the ones that are being.
They
making
picked the
decisions.
chancellor.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Garbarino, a predecessor of yours, Mr. Paul Harrenberg, you know the name?
Yes, Mr. Herron, he was a teacher.
He was very good.
Bayport.
He proposed a lot of legislation. What legislation do you have proposed? What have you done? What are you going to do?
Well, Mr. Harrenberg was a statewide, to get a statewide bill passed in the New York State Legislature, you have to have a Republican Senate sponsor and a
I know how it works.
Democratic Assembly sponsor. But there's also a lot of things that you can do locally. There's called local bills that you can sponsor and you know, get them passed under your own name. We've done a lot of bills coming up for non-for-profits, a lot of bills, you know, one of the things we did, we got the, you know, for the lower part of the district, we got money in for the sewer study, but this past year, Islip School District, they had a couple budgets ago, they had construction money. They had construction funds, you know, for the building aid, come in. And they built the buildings, they spent the millions of dollars on this, and they forgot, the school district forgot, on 3 different projects, forgot to send in a piece of paper, and the time passed. So then time passed, and the state said,
That's right.
we're taking that money back. You're not getting it. The school district the building was already built, they already spent all the money. They were counting on the state aid. So this was something that we were told we could not get passed. You know, we would have to change it, it would have to be done legislatively. Phil Boyle and I met with the superintendent this past year, Sue Schnebel, and we drafted the legislation. we pushed for it, or this was something, they don't usually pass. And the second to last week before session ended, we got movement on it. We got it out of committee, based on, a lot of this is, I'm talking to my friend who's the leader of the Bronx Democratic Party, who's also assemblyman. I say, the speaker's, can you help me? I need this bill passed. We got it passed. It was great. We were so excited until last week, when the governor's office called us and said he's vetoing the bill, costing Islip School District $3.2 million. And when I asked his counsel, why are you vetoing the bill? They said, well, he doesn't like doing these bills. It's a budgetary issue. I said, it's not a budgetary issue. I said, the building aid was given to him years ago. It's already set aside for them. It's not a budget. It
Why
doesn't
didn't
have to
they do the paperwork properly?
it happens. You know what? Somebody missed a,
One piece of
Yeah.
paper doesn't mean they
Cookie,
should take away
buddy.
all that money.
Did you
hold on, I'm not done telling my story.
Okay.
All right, so he vetoed the bill, and now that $3.2 million is gonna have to, we can try to do it again next year, but as of right now, they have to pull it out of, and they had a negative tax cap this year, so they're going, another bill that I got pushed through, it was done actually for the village of Patchogue. They had extra sewer funds, because they have a sewer there, and they collect extra, sometimes when they have extra money, they can't spend it on other things without getting, so they want to do a schools to parks sidewalk program. They had this, it was, I can't remember how much money it was, but they wanted to redo all the sidewalks that go from the schools down to the parks, so that, because some of them have it. They had this money there, and we needed to pass it legislatively. We got it done. That actually went into effect. We did it for them, I think we did it for them twice. We haven't done it since.
Is that a statewide thing or local?
That was, again, it's not, I'm not gonna lie, I can't get, right now, the way it's made up, I can't get a statewide bill passed. I cannot, we're pushing for reforms.
Introduce a statewide bill.
Oh, yes, yeah, we can introduce statewide bills. I have a few. There's one, we pushed one, I wanted to tell you about the things that we can get. If somebody comes to me for a local problem, I can get it done. I'm not, vain enough to say I need to have a chapter. My name needs to be on when a bill passes and turned into law, it's chaptered is what it's called. So you need to have,
Yeah, sponsored legislation.
yeah, I'm chapter. My name's in the book. It says this. There are people up there that, I had a bill laid aside for debate and ended up killing that bill this year. And the senator, who's from upstate, Republican, came over to me. He was very upset. He goes, "You just cost me a chapter." I said, "I had questions I wanted to ask. I don't care if I cost you a chapter." I said, "I had questions about your bill." So he was pissed because sometimes that's what it is. But as long as the way I see it, I can be effective for the people in my district. I can take care of the local issues. I don't need to have a statewide bill passed. I'm a co-sponsor on plenty of bills. I'm second co-sponsor on plenty of bills that get, that have been passed. I don't have one under my, it doesn't bother me. As long as I can stay effective and help the district, that's what I'm going to do.
Who's the senior assemblyman in New York State?
Senior assembly, the Speaker of the House, or by age?
Well, the guy who'd be sort of one you go to.
Well, I have a couple of colleagues that I'm friends with that are not senior, but there's a couple of members from New York City. A guy who's great on Long Island who helps us get, we just did one. It was a statewide bill, but he had Fred Thiel, who caucuses with the Democrats, but he's an independent. He represents East Hampton and Southampton. He will, if we have an issue that we want to push, he'll carry it for us, and he'll get it done for us. Fred Thiel. He's great.
Thiel.
He's very good. There was a bill we just did this past year. We're going to get it. We're going to get both houses to pass it. It had to deal with the tax cap. When school districts, Patchogue, Medford, for example, they were staying underneath the tax cap, but there was a there was a provision on the ballot also to start busing. The school district didn't want it. People went out and got petitions for it. School district wanted it because it was going to put them over the tax cap. But because if it would have passed, it would have put them over the tax cap, even though they weren't proposing it, they would have needed 60% just to pass the regular budget, which was only, I think, a 1% increase or whatever it was.
Zero, yeah.
Yeah, so, but they needed 60% to get the supermajority. You know, that wasn't the intention of the tax cap. It was to cut the cost and, so the school district stayed within its limit, but because of a hostile amendment, is what we call it, they had to get a 60%. So that's something that we wanted to fix, because if they have to go to a contingency budget, because, and what I'm saying is, even
And
if.
the voters voted for it,
Even
you
if,
say.
no, even if it passed with 54% of the vote and the amendment failed, they still needed to get the 60%.
Ah,
It's not if the amendment passed, they needed to get the 60%. Even if the amendment failed and their tax increase or whatever was only 0 or 0.5%, and they stayed underneath the cap, they would have needed 60%. So that was something.
Because the amendment was on there?
on the ballot. Not even that it passed, but just because it was on the ballot. I mean, it was, it's something that wasn't intended,
so you put in
debate.
legislation.
well, we're trying to fix that. The Senate and the Assembly they're negotiating over language, but it's something that Fred carried, because I represent part of Patchogue, and so does Dean Murray, and Al Graff, 3 Republicans. He put it in for us because it happened. They put it up every year, and in my opinion, a contingency budget, the way they work now really hurts the kids because it takes away all the programs. That's something else to be addressed also. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question about the casino that's coming here,
Through
the
the
Marriott.
yeah, the OTB. Yep.
Are you for the casinos, against the casinos?
I voted for the constitutional amendment for the casinos, yes. But they were limited to upstate New York. This was put through by,
The ones in jail, yeah.
well, actually, this one, the one in Nassau was put through by Skelos.
Skelos, right.
This one was Ballone's. This is,
Oh, the one out here is Ballones?
they pushed for it, Balone pushed for this
Well,
one.
that's
Skelos and Mangano wanted the county executives wanted, because they
Right.
want to raise money without raising taxes. That's why it now costs $1,000 to record a deed in Nassau County.
But you voted
know.
for it as well?
I voted for the, overall amendment. I thought, there's a lot of people leaving to go to Connecticut and New Jersey.
But did you know that a 10-mile radius, which encompasses the entire Connecticut district, a 10-mile radius, obviously we have more than one casino in the world, so there's been many studies done on it, and in a 10-mile radius, the home values are lowered 10% in the first 2 years
With,
when there's a casino in the area?
a full casino, that's like this thing. This is,
VLTs is video crack. That's
Yeah.
worse, I think, than the tables. At least the tables will get an upscale client. And I'm sure that they plan on expanding that. But home values in general around a casino, around an area, within a 10-mile radius, and that was the conservative, there's a lot that are within a 50-mile radius, lowers our property values within 10%.
the
10%
the enabling legislation for the casinos. I'm the ranking, actually, Republican on the Racing and Wagering Committee, so I had to read the entire bill and debate it. Was for the casinos and the VLTs that went to the off-track betting, the OTBs. That's what we
Right.
have in Suffolk and Nassau. Was supposed to be, there were supposed to be some local control here. Unfortunately, they did not. Well, they did. They went, actually, they did go, they went to a village who
Right.
only has to answer to its, they abided by the law in a very,
Well, the village didn't abide by the law, and there's actually a lawsuit against the
well,
village.
but I'm talking about the OTB.
That
They
village
went
is
to
going
the,
away.
they went to,
No, we're talking about Mastic. Village of Islandia is not going away.
A lot,
Islandia.
they went to the village where they because the village of Islandia is going to get a lot of money. That's why they did it.
Right.
They're going to get a lot of money from both this, from the OTB, from OTB.
But a lot of the residents in Islandia
Yeah.
don't want it, and that's why they started the petition and the filings and the lawsuit
Yeah.
against it.
But what I mean is, there was supposed to be local control,
Right.
and the fact that the local municipality was just small, it wasn't the county that had to
Right.
approve it, it wasn't the town of Brookhaven, the town of Islip, because they went to this, it was less, you know,
Yeah,
it was,
So when
was less
there's, when
resistance,
there's
yeah.
legislation that, when there's something like that, that affects not just that town that they're putting it in, but it would affect Bohemia, it would affect Ronkonkoma, it would affect Hauppauge, and going as far as to affect Oakdale. Isn't there something, some sort of legislation that you could do that
Well,
all those
the
municipalities?
Suffolk, I mean, you're allowed to, I believe the Suffolk Planning Commission, and if it's within a certain, if it, I believe because it's on, the Suffolk Planning Commission did put in, I believe, comments, I don't know if they opposed it or if, but they are the Village of Atlanta is the, they decide, they vote, but other municipalities are notified and they're asked to put in, you know, questions whenever you know, if you're doing zoning or something that's next to another municipality or next to a, you know, you have to notify these other groups, and they have the opportunity to comment on it. You know, what, I don't know what the Suffolk Planning Commission
But then it
did.
comes down to that village, though, to
Yeah,
vote.
you can't, I mean, you can't,
So even those comments, though, they don't really matter, it's just the village that, so you could, like, I could put in a comment, say I'm town of Islip, I could put in a comment
we're
where I'm
really against this.
totally against it, but the village can still say, I don't care, that everybody else is against it, I'm the village, it's going in, so.
It's our
That's-
property, we have
okay.
jurisdiction over here.
Okay, that's what I want to know, thank you.
Yeah, it's very, I do, in my other life, I do zoning law work, so I see it,
Yeah, well, they didn't go through their zoning, that's the problem.
well, no, I mean, but, you know, you know these things where if it's close enough to another jurisdiction
Right.
or a road or something, you have to notify different, like, I mean, the state had to be I mean, the DPW, all these people had to be notified to make sure it was, you know, they all were asked for comments, but in the end, it goes down to the village.
Okay. I'm
I
gonna
have a
wrap it up
question to ask about the Attorney General. The Attorney General's office is auditing all the schools in New York State eventually, and everyone that gets audited, in every newspaper I read, they're overtaxing us because they're inflating their expense budget.
Oh, the comptroller.
And they're taking our tax money, which they shouldn't be doing, and they're putting it into accounts because they pushed up their expense account, and they don't spend all that money, and then that gets put into an account, and they're averaging about $5 to $6 million a year, every school district, putting in, because they're overspending their budget, and they don't spend the money. And every time they get audited, nothing happens.
No, I mean, I know Sable actually just got an audit, I think, last year, and they were forced to reallocate the money back to the fund, so it would be spent on the general fund. I mean, they when the audits do
Did the
come
money
out,
go back to the taxpayers?
it went.
No, they make them.
What happens? Actually, it meant less money. It went back to the general fund, which means they had to collect less the next year.
Yeah,
So I mean, I do know that for a fact. Like last year, I believe, or it might have been, it was last year.